Cinema Classics is sponsored by the Gateway Film Center and is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to shows online at wcbe.org. I'm Johnny DiLoretto.
I'm John DeSando.
This is Cinema Classics.
Yep, it is.
One of the movies, I don't know if you were actually, I think, out of commission.
You're right, you subbed for me.
Back when this movie debuted on Netflix, I think in the summer, was it?
Well, it was May.
May?
Yeah.
Okay. Da 5 Bloods, directed by Spike Lee. It was a really interesting movie at a really weird time.
Yeah.
These 5 Vietnam vets go back to find their buddy's remains, right, and bury him properly, or what was it?
Well, they had buried gold.
They had buried
at the
gold.
time, but they also wanted to disinter him and bring him home.
Yeah. Okay. And adventure ensues, arguments, clashes of personality.
Great.
All led by an amazing Delroy Lindo.
Oh.
And I used to love Delroy Lindo, and it felt like for a while, I felt like I wasn't seeing that guy anywhere. But here he comes back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
I loved it. I mean, the typical Spike Lee stuff. You have Lindo talking right to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of good commentary. A little bit of Treasure of Sierra Madre, which happens to be Lee's favorite film.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not surprised at that at all. He also was influenced to become a director by Deer Hunter.
Okay.
So you can see where he's coming from, but he's obviously got a much lighter touch in most of his films.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing and so on. While there's violence,
right?
I mean, let me just say that after having heard from the hospital your award-winning review, in which you did a solo without my help, which really hurt, because it was quite good. But anyway, I finally got around to seeing it, and I'm disappointed that I hadn't seen it before, so that I could put it with some of the best films of last year.
Yeah, for sure. It's an energetic, boisterous film.
Yes.
Lots of stuff going on. Chadwick Boseman, the late Chadwick Boseman in there. There's so much to talk about in that one thing. But we were going to talk about the overall arc of
you're right.
Lee's
But I think it's a good place for us to begin, because
Yeah.
I'm really renewed impressed with him. And when you think about great directors, you're first going to talk about Spielberg, and you might even say Nolan, you might say Scorsese, and then somebody's going to come up, and maybe even Woody Allen. But I don't think you initially, meaning Johnny, somebody out there usually comes in with Spike Lee.
Yeah, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I think because I was coming into my own as a young film aficionado when Spike Lee burst onto the scene with Do the Right Thing, and he had made She's Gotta Have It right before that, which is like a funky little black and white indie New York comedy. So he was on everybody's radar. But Do the Right Thing landed with such impact and weight. You might say it's his Citizen Kane, and that he's been chasing after it ever since.
In that film, nobody comes off well.
No.
Black, white, it doesn't make any difference. Completely democratic.
Right. And it's been so long since I've seen it, but it is burned into my cinematic memory. And it was, it was funny, it was insightful and angry, and it was just an extraordinary expression of the form and of his political standpoint. And I feel like after that, kind of like he was always sort of chasing after that kind of greatness again. I lost track of Spike Lee actually for a while there, around the time he was making movies like Bamboozled. But
the 90s were his greatest moments, I think.
Tell me.
Because you also had Malcolm X, a terrific performance by Denzel.
Yeah.
You also said marked on some. Well, even Jungle Fever in '91.
For sure.
Yeah.
Low Better Blues.
Yeah. And in fact, that reminds me that in Jungle Fever was Wesley Snipes. Where's Wesley Snipes these days?
Wesley Snipes is making a quiet comeback, I think.
All right.
He was in that My Name is Dolomite movie with Eddie Murphy. Remember?
Oh, right, yeah.
One of the things worth mentioning about Spike Lee, too, apart from his auteur films, he has done a couple of these director-for-hire jobs. you know, where
Yeah.
he takes on someone else's script and is operating more or less in that Hollywood system. So he's made at least 2 of those. 25th Hour with Edward Norton and Inside Man with Denzel and Jodie Foster, which is that heist movie. Both of those are really great. I kind of love sometimes when you get a great artist who is relieved of the burden of saying something of his own,
Well,
and can aim those talents at something lesser.
He is
in a
all
genre
over
maybe.
the universe. I mean, I could not list the number of shorts and documentaries that he has done, commercials that he's done. Does the man ever sleep?
Yeah.
I mean, take a look at this through 2-3 pages
Mhm.
of work. Some of them, as you're talking about, really high quality. And I remember also back in the 90s, that just to end off with a couple of them, the Clockers,
Mhm.
which is about druggies,
Yeah.
and then the Crooklyn,
Right.
which had Delroy in it.
Delroy
And
Lindo. Yeah.
Alf,
Again.
Alf, she's a school teacher, I think, something like that.
Alfred Woodard.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, to me, that was his great. Those were his great moments.
Yeah. He is definitely. You know, bad Spike Lee movies are good movies.
Yes.
You know, there's always something to chew on there. There's a point of view to wrestle with. He is always never less than cinematically kind of engaged.
Yes.
His movies are colorful. Yeah, and look, he is a reflection of those movies. How many American filmmakers does the average movie-going public know outside of their movie? They know Spike Lee. You know Spike Lee.
Yes.
He's a public figure.
Yes.
He is somebody whose personality precedes him.
It struck me though that he has received only 1 Oscar,
Okay.
and this was a year ago maybe, for Black Klansman, best adapted screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting to me?
It is interesting, and I do think it speaks a little bit to, you know, I mean, obviously we can say the Academy is historically racist. Beyond that, I don't think oftentimes, like I said, since Do the Right Thing or a couple of those early movies, that his movies land on all the right notes sometimes. There's an imperfection about a lot of his films that fuels what's interesting about them, but also I think keeps them from really deeply resonating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know sometimes,
you know what I'm talking
I
about?
do, because sometimes I think he tries too much.
Okay.
He tries to go to too many topics. He tries to be relevant. He tries to be humanistic. He tries a whole bunch of things, and I'm not sure it all comes off as well.
Yeah.
But we do know this. His greatness is cemented permanently now in the National Film Registry. Did you ever hear of that?
Yeah, I did.
There are 4 of his films there.
Okay. What are they?
Well, you know which one. You, of course, you know Do the Right Thing, but She's Gotta Have It, which would be his first, you mentioned it. Yeah, Malcolm X, and 4 Little Girls, about the kids bombing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that church.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
he's archived.
Mm-hmm.
He is considered by experts the greatest. We need to preserve him. We got all that.
Absolutely. And he's back on the scene with the Five Bloods. You can see it on Netflix.